right. Well, hi, everyone. So we're Friday at 1 o'clock, another great top agent panel. This one is on listing luxury properties during the COVID, during shelter in place. And I'm really excited because three really powerhouse agents in the Oakland, Berkeley, and entire area are on this panel. Amazing agents. So I'm going to introduce them to you. The first one is Leah Tounger. Oh, by the way, I'm Tina Jones. I'm the broker manager for the Keller Williams in Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, and Castro Valley. So Leah Tounger, she's at Keller Williams. She is a luxury agent, does around $30 million a year in production. And she did not send me her bio. Fortunately, I know her. She's also an owner in several offices, an investor, and has been around forever. So welcome, Leah. I have Andrea. She goes without introduction as well. She's been around forever. Number one, independent by herself, not on a team agent. Her production hovers in the 50 million range, and she has used to be in theater and still is. In fact, I had the privilege last year of going and seeing one of her productions that she produced, directed. It was amazing. It was in San Francisco. It was so fun to see her, and she was so proud. And then Tracy Sichterman, am I saying your name right?
Yep.
I just been getting to know her. As you know, I'm kind of a transplant to the area. So I've only been here 7 years. So I never met Tracy. And Tracy owns Berkeley Hills Real Estate over there on Solano Avenue. And she does, oh gosh, probably in the 20 million range, and has flipped many houses and helped many flip them. But my favorite thing is back in the day, in her college days, she lived in the Tenderloin in San Francisco and used to hand out PBJs to the homeless. And they were always thinking she was a church. So finally they called themselves the PB&J Church. I thought that was hilarious and cute. And I imagine you continue to come from contribution in your community like that. So welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And we're just going to start out. So the format is I will ask these questions. If you have a question, anyone, go ahead and put it in the chat. Also, I'm going to start recording this right now. Gustavo, will you record it?
Yes, I'm recording it. Yes.
Good, good. I will look at the chat. If you have questions, put them in the chat. I'll try to ask as many as I can on top of the questions I have. And then if we have time towards the end, I'll allow you guys to unmute and ask any questions you have. So we'll start with this. So Tracy, I'll start with you. What's the highest priced home you've sold?
$2.4 million, so probably less than the other two, but
that's all right.
Our office hovers around our median's about $1.2 million, so.
Got it. Andrea, what's the highest priced home you've sold?
Single family home, the highest priced home I've sold is $4 million. Okay. But I've sold multi-units into the $11 million range.
Love it. And Leah?
So 3.7 million. And I think the interesting thing about that one, Tina, was that was last year. And I represented the buyer. They were coming from Switzerland and they purchased sight unseen. Wow. So there was a virtual sale, right, where we did a lot of FaceTiming on the home, in the neighborhood. She had a friend come in that did FaceTiming with us. So it can happen. They actually didn't see it until months later. And I was nervous when they saw it for the first time, for sure.
Okay, let me ask you then, and then I'll go to the next question. Was there any special disclosures, letters, attorneys, whatever that you needed to do to mitigate your liability in an unvisited property?
You know, I think rightly or wrongly, we didn't really do a lot of extra disclosures at that time. I think we just did a lot of great communication in writing, you know, where it was very clear that they were moving forward sight unseen. And, you know, so we didn't do that, but it was all fine. It was good. Went smoothly.
Great. And did they love the house when they got in it?
Oh, she loved it. And then they put another 400,000 into it. And it just is, it was a fixer at 3.7, kind of, sort of. Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. So this is a tough question. And what I know about most agents, especially kind of the more they produce, the less they're willing to shoot off about themselves. But what would you say is your value proposition? Why would a luxury seller choose you? Why don't we start with you, Tracy?
Well, I think I come at it from a different perspective because my background is in art and design. So a lot of the clients that I have that we're working on a couple of different projects now where they're estate sales, and the heirs have always wanted to do the house honor. And I think when I come to them with a portfolio of work we've done in the past, and then plus ready with a vision board of not only appreciating what their house looks now, but what we can make it look like, I think that's a different value proposition. And I could show that compared to how all of us are kind of flippers now because we're doing more and more at each property. But I can show how a design eye can elevate that sense over just our agents' good advice. And all of us have good advice about what buyers like in this market and everything. But I think some training behind that gives it some legs.
I love that. Very creative. Yeah. All right, Andrea, what is that you would say is your value proposition? Why would a luxury seller choose you?
I think that honestly, it's because I'm incredibly smart and I come into my appointments with these different sellers and have already very well vetted the property, vetted the architect for the property, understood perhaps the history of the property, and can come to it with some different ideas on how we might market it. For example, I was very aware not that long ago at 5999 Grizzly Peak that there is a huge Asian market for mid-century modern homes. And this home the architect was a very well-known mid-century architect. And so I created a website in Chinese and made sure it was on proper search engines in Asia. And the buyer was in Singapore and saw it online on the proper site and flew over and made an offer, actually like Leah's, sight unseen, subject to their visual inspection, and paid a considerable amount of money just to have this trophy Joseph Escherich home.
Nice.
So I do stuff like that.
Yeah. Great. Leah, what would you say is your value proposition? Why would a luxury seller choose you?
So Tina, I think, certainly we tend to want to give all of our luxury sellers the white glove treatment, right? Taking over the keys from the very beginning to the very end, making it as stress-free as possible. And, speaking to, of course, what both of the other ladies have stated, we want to do top-notch marketing. We want to prepare the house to its best. And also, of course, negotiating for them. I think that's always a big conversation that we have, is really negotiating any offer. Certainly at the higher price points, we're probably not going to have the tons of offers that you get at the lower price points, right? So speaking to them about negotiating that price up always. But I think for me, really, my value proposition is probably that I ask a lot of questions. Whenever I go, I'm really all about what it is they're after. And I think for every seller, just as in any price point, really, what it is they're after. And so I ask a lot of questions, where they want to go, how they want to get there. And I think I really stress coming from a place of contribution. And I know everyone does that to one extent or another, but I think I'm always looking to spend their money like it was my own, and to make decisions for them like it was my own house. And so I think it's very organic. It's who I connect with, definitely. And I think that, really having the full range of excellent services, negotiating, preparing properties, but then really that, connecting with people on their level.
Nice. Okay, so here's another question. We all know with any business, you wouldn't have a business if you don't lead generate, right? Everything from doctors to restaurant, you have to create clients. So what are you doing to lead generate? Are there any systems you're using? And what would you say a majority of your leads come from? Andrea, why don't we start with you? I'll kind of mix this up a little.
Sure. Well, one thing for those people who are on the call that are newer agents is that you don't develop a body of work immediately. So you have to be very mindful of who your sphere is. Tap into your sphere as often as you possibly can. At this point, I've been doing this for 22 years. And at this point in my career, almost all of my leads come from referrals of varying kinds. For example, the house that I have listed right now, the 4616 Rockingham, which is a big, beautiful mansion up in the Oakland Hills. I was referred to those sellers by not less than 4 people, friends of theirs. So but when the time came to list it, they were like, oh yeah, we're going to use her. So what you want to do is you want to create big relationships with your whole sphere. Stay in constant contact with them. I do have a farm area that I send marketing materials to on a regular basis, which is the Claremont Knolls. So I do a ton of business in there. But early on, my first broker was this great guy named Mohammed Ahmed at Century 21 in Daly City. And he just said to give out your card as often as you possibly could. So for the first several years of my business, I made sure I handed out 5 cards a day. Didn't matter to whom, whether it was to my dry cleaner or a gardener or somebody I met in line at the supermarket, I gave out my card to 5 people a day. And the end result of that was I have sold a lot of houses to the guy at the garage, the guy who owns the jewelry store, my dry cleaner, her mother. And that's how you build a sphere over time.
It's true. I love it. Okay, Leah, same thing. What lead gen systems do you do, and where do a majority of your leads come from?
Yes, I would agree with Andrea. A majority of my leads come from my sphere and past clients. And then also I would say from agent referrals. And those agent referrals really primarily come from most of the other Keller Williams agents. We do a ton of training, so we do a lot of face-to-face. And so a lot of luxury events where we can meet agents and make those relationships. So I would say every year, and really some of the top price point buyers that I have gotten have been from those agent relationships. So I think that is something for newer agents also to be really thinking about, is always, always, always make relationships. Every touring would be a big thing. I was a religious, tour person. I think every time you make an offer, get to know that agent, whether you get the property or not. That's a great place to get to know other agents. All of those things matter. But I think connecting with people, past clients and sphere, we do events. I love that because then that makes calling all of those people really easy. So we are scheduled after SIP's over, to do 4 events a year. The last one we did was a Chinese New Year, super fun. We had a dinner for about 40 people and sat family style all on one big table. And so the great thing is you can contact them several times before the event. I'm making calls to all those to all my clients, all my sphere. It's like an all out for all of us on the team to be calling everyone. Then we're emailing them, we're texting them, we're doing all of that. Certainly we get leads from open houses. We do neighborhood parties at every open house we do at any price point. And certainly when we have a bigger house, luxury house, we're gonna do a really big party, sometimes have live music and make it really fun for the neighborhood to come in. We actually door knock all around the neighborhood for every listing that we do, even the high-end listings. And what's very interesting is the high-end listings, those people love talking to you. They're always surprised that you're at their door and they love talking about real estate, right? So those are the people that actually open up their doors. So we do that for every new listing that we have. So those are just some of the ways. And
great, love it, thank you.
mhm.
So we all know that to get the,
Wait, can I answer that question?
yes, Tracy, sorry.
That's okay. I just think I have some fun things that are good to add.
What
One thing is, the one thing that I would say is that every time you do get a listing, you really use that listing. I'm a fan of inviting as many people in, not just buyers, because that's exposure to you and your brand too. So we'll do, back before shelter in place, we did champagne receptions and that sort of thing. We also do, if it's a historic property, I like to get on the Architectural Heritage Society's garden tour if we can, or reach out in that way. Or if there's something around the story of a house that could make a theme, that can bring in some local club or group in addition to just the neighbors, we try to target that to broaden the exposure. And it's also just really fun to then show the picture of the big crowd that gathered to your sellers, because it makes them feel like you're really doing your job. So that's one thing that I do. I agree with both of them, that both Andrea and Leah, that it's really important to keep the connections. One of my favorite things to do is to take pictures of the houses. A lot of the kids are still in the area but sold their parents' house. So I like to take like vignettes of what is, like, one of the houses I sold had a book lending library in it. So I would reach out and, in a direct message to the kids and say, good news, the people that bought your parents' house are the book lending library type, or, you know, what they've done with the front porch, if that's sweet, and sort of remember that that connection to that house is probably still there, and use that sometimes as a way to reach out. I also believe in having, I believe many hands make the work light. So on any listing I have, I also bring another agent for their sphere or whatever. I never try to be all things to all people. And I think that helps widen the gap a little. And to that extent, there's also, I'm a Midwestern girl, and I know that some of you agents here that grew up at Berkeley High, and I see how deep all of those connections and how wide that is. And in the beginning, I was kind of like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. But I do know some people that are in those spheres and are really good, that know tons of people, that have known tons of people in this area for forever. And so I've made them in fact, I've encouraged them sometimes to get their real estate license, not because they're going to become realtors, but then they could be referral only agents, that then I can legally pay them a referral fee if they remember to broadcast my name to their big group. Same with treating people really well. When I've got a lawyer that I know I get a lot of business from, I've got a financial fiduciary that I have that sometimes gets called in to help people make decisions, that I take really good care of. And aside from parties, there's some simple things that could keep you in touch with them all year that can look really personal. Like, one of the things I use is a company called Intentionalities, where you sign up a client with that, and you could handwrite the personal notes ahead of time, and they have people that will handwrite, like, you could just type in a text message with your order, and then they'll have a piece one that I'll send a message around that. But I could write on one day 4 different messages, and then 4 different gift boxes will go out during the year, and I don't have to think about it again. So things that save, things like that help me out. I also think just having a company with goodwill. There's lots of great companies in the Bay Area. Berkeley Hills Realty, I know, gets calls from our name, and I think it's helpful that, knock on wood, we've never had a lawsuit, because we try to do really ethical business and pay attention to that brand. But yeah, lots of ideas, lots of different things we do.
That's awesome. I'm going to stay with you, and let's just go to the next step. So you get all these great leads because of your goodwill, your reputation, your commitment to come from contribution, your great events, everything that you do. How do you follow up with these leads? Because we know people can get leads, but then they drop off at the follow-up. What does your follow-up look like? Do you have systems? Do you do drip campaign? Is there anything you do to stay in touch and connected to these leads? Because they may not buy for a year.
I already told you about some of the gifting that we try to do ahead of time. We also do I do a lot of email things, particularly because sometimes with kids, they're everywhere, but you still have their same email address. So we do a lot with that. I do believe, though, in going through the database. I don't think that you can drip system your way through it. I think it has to be, I go out to lunch with people, or you remember to, even if you know someone's got a busy schedule of their own, you invite them to things or hikes or whatever, just to kind of keep in touch with those core people that you know are your minions, that are, you know, out there doing work for you. They need to be rewarded and kept in touch with. So I think that's almost more important.
Yeah.
Love it. Andrea, what do you do for follow-up?
I do so many things. It's there. I have well, first off, I have a marketing plan, and I follow my marketing plan religiously. So there's certain things that go out every single month. One of them is my newsletter, which goes out to a huge sphere of people, not just my clients, but also family, friends, other realtors. A lot of you have received my newsletters, and you know, just try to keep it meaningful for them to receive that. But more than that, I agree completely with Tracy that you really need to have a personal touch and relationship to these folks. I have been reaching out to so many people. I've been talking to 15 people a day since this whole COVID thing started. I've been talking to people, and I haven't been talking about real estate at all. I've been talking about what's important, and I've had some of the most amazing conversations. I emailed a client about something because I saw something that I thought he might be interested in, and I wrote just at the end of it, you know, hope to see you on the other side of this. And I don't know what happened, but he wrote me back like this unbelievable, beautiful, you know, if it were pages, it would have been a 3-page letter about his dreams, hopes, concerns, worries, how he's been dealing with this, that, and the other thing. And it was like I'd opened up a floodgate of some kind. And I've been finding that a lot. I think people are very emotional during this time. I think people are I think everybody is doing a reset and figuring out who they are, where they're going to be after this, what they want for their life. I think when something like this comes and it's hitting you like as in your heart, as how are we going to all survive as a group of people through this? I think that those are great opportunities for us as human beings, and also for our business, to figure out who we want to be. What is our actual vision moving forward? So I've been really doing a lot of soul searching during all of this. And I think that when people realize that you're authentic and that you're genuinely there for them, and you're not just trying to sell them something, and that you're not just trying to, you know, money isn't the whole deal, that business comes your way. So it's the law of attraction, essentially. I think that you can't look at it as like Zillow buying leads. Those things, they work up to a point, but they don't work all the way through. It's human. It's being human.
Oh, couldn't have said it better. That was really good. Thank you, Andrea. Leah, how about you? What are you doing to follow up with your leads?
So again, I'm probably a little old school in some ways, because I'm certainly just picking up the phone a ton and finding, much as Andrea is saying, just that I am on the phone, especially with, you know, sellers and buyers who were probably in the game and then have moved to the sidelines for safety's sake, and to figure out, you know, where their place is in all of this, just having a lot of conversations with them, finding out exactly where they are. But then on the flip side, I think we've really been taking this time also to double down on our technology, for sure. We've been really, you know, our database was pretty together. I would say that we have like a 45 touch, you know, very methodical marketing that we do the minute we get leads. It is put into that system. I think that marketing is the backdrop, and then really following up personally on the leads is kind of the icing on the cake that makes it personal. So I think both are important. So we are, you know, getting more leads from landing pages that we're putting out there on Facebook. We're capturing information from the landing pages. And then now we're working on developing auto plans, right? So the minute they get that, they're getting emails and text messages and then a call from us. So I think there's a real balance. I think technology is really important going forward. And I think, you know, for newer agents, that's certainly where they can be working during this time too, you know, certainly making phone calls, but also whatever brokerage you're at, you probably have some good CRM software, and now's the time to get that together, because usually we don't have time. So
that's right. CRM is your business.
it's your data bank.
It's your data bank. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the more robust and healthy it is, the more information you have in there, the better it will be. Okay, so right now, trying to get listings, because we still have low inventory, huge problem with that because there's a lot of buyers out there. How are you meeting sellers? How are you finding sellers? How are you getting these listings? And then when you get an appointment with the seller, what kind of conversations are you having with them on how to sell during this time, this uncharted territory? So Andrea, I'll start with you. I'll go to Tracy and then to Leah.
So this has been really fascinating actually, because during all of this, I've actually taken 3 listings entirely during shelter in place. And I've gotten 5 properties on the market entirely virtually, 3 of which are in contract right now. And they're not entirely virtually getting into the contract because the person had to get into the house to get an inspection, this, that, and the other thing. But I did have a very surreal experience the other day on a listing that I just got, where I actually went to the house. It was my first time out of the house in a couple of months. So I was all neurotic and putting my mask on and gloves and the whole thing. And I got there and I sat outside with the seller and his wife and their 2 little kids. Everybody had masks on. We were all 6 feet away from each other. And it was hysterical. I mean, I wish I had pictures of the whole thing, but they were very, very astute people. And as both Leah and Tracy have said, when you get to this price point, people are extremely sophisticated. They're highly successful in their own fields. They know what they're doing. They know what they want. They understand money. They understand how to hold on to money. They understand what value. They themselves have a complete design aesthetic, generally speaking. At least the level of sophistication of my particular buyers and sellers is such. So they were completely aware that there's very low inventory, and they thought that this was a great time to put a house on the market because there was very likely to be nothing similar to their property on the market. And, you know, it's a $2 million property with a gorgeous view, and they're right. There isn't that much on. So for me, I think, really having a lot of talking points around what you are going to do. You know, my company Compass has incredible virtual tools. So I've been able to create virtual brochures, virtual, you know, beautiful videos, but I've been getting really creative with my videos and stuff. For a while there, before we were allowed to go into people's houses, some of you have even seen them. I was actually having the sellers take a video on their cell phone, and then I narrated after the fact. I'm not kidding you. And I actually wrote music and performed it for a couple of my videos because I couldn't find ways to get non-copyrighted music. And it needed music because it needed fill. So I've actually turned all of this into kind of a creative enterprise for myself during the most recent past. And I've really been enjoying it. So when you can get really excited and hyped up about how you're going to market somebody, it makes them enthusiastic too. So I think that that's another part of the process is I think that it's confidence. When it comes right down to it, when you are talking with these sellers, it is confidence about what you're doing. If they understand that you have no fear, then they will jump and have no fear too. So what you need to do is set them up for success by allaying their fears and understanding your product from start to finish. I'm sorry, my bird is going insane in the background. If it's driving you guys nuts, I apologize. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, also one of your videos, I got to see several, you were narrating them as well.
Yes, yes.
It was nice with your very calm, soothing voices. Tracy, how about you? What kind of conversations, how, And oh, by the way, I forgot to ask, what are you doing? Are you Zooming them, WhatsApping them, FaceTiming them?
I've still, now that we can, I'm back to meeting some people. I still have face mask marks from meeting people. I think people still like, even if it's in the yard, 6 feet of separation, I feel like they still want that. But I want to back up a little bit, because I think that what Andrea said and what's helpful for all of us that now have some experience under our belt is that idea of her saying that 4 people already said that they would use me, going in for a warm lead. And I think that one of the secrets that is not that big of a secret, it'll seem like common sense once you hear it, but I think that there's so many good agents in this area that when you want those recommendations to come, you want them to come with a specific. So one of the things that I do on my past listings, that besides the glitz and glam champagne receptions and fancy marketing and video tours, one of the things that I do that's really down to earth and doesn't sound like what people think of for luxury real estate as white glove treatment, but it is I always manufacture a jeans day. And what I mean by a jeans day is there's always a moment on each listing where I can go in my jeans and do like 1 day of service for that listing. I've done everything from one house, the seller went away and was really proud of his vegetable garden, but of course those things when the house is vacant don't last, and replanted his vegetable garden. One house didn't want to remove a fish tank in the entryway, and because they were afraid that the historic wallpaper would get messed up, but they had extra rolls, and I happened to wallpaper when I was in college, so I wallpapered their entryway. You know, one time I had a seller whose big hurdle to getting on the market was kind of this garage that she could never get cleaned out and go through all of the stuff that was some of her husband's stuff, and it was just like an emotionally hard thing. So me and one of the associates from my office went there for a day and just got her started on getting through all of the garage stuff. So just jeans day as a concept of thinking of, and more often than not, when I get a review or something now, they'll be like, there was this incredible moment where she came in jeans and did this one thing, or they won't even mention the jeans, they'll say the thing that happened. And with luxury clientele too, I think that sometimes people are too tight with what they spend on things, not for the marketing, but I will never cut my commission to make a deal work, because I think that, you know, buyers and sellers have to go in with open hearts and if it's because of a $3,000 kickback that they did something, that's not what I'm a proponent for. But on the other hand, if something goes wrong, I'll be the first to fix it. You know, if the seller took the refrigerator out of the garage because they didn't realize all refrigerators meant the one in the garage too, but now they're using it, maybe I buy a garage for that, and then both sides feel happy because they both know that I was the one who made the garage the refrigerator become 2 refrigerators. Or being willing to know that sellers are smart, and they calculate your commission and they know what you do for that money. So if you can find the places where you give back willingly without them having to ask, or where you can give in a way that's different than, obviously they've hired me in the first place because they think I'm smart and they think that I have some experience and something to offer in that arena. But if I could surprise them from an angle that they weren't expecting, then when I go into that next listing appointment, sometimes that's how I got it. You know, that's why there's one lawyer that keeps referring to me, because he keeps getting these glowing reports of the special thing that I did for that one person, as if I only do that for that one person. And it's true, you can always find that moment of something where you could put jeans on and lend a hand. And one of the first questions that I ask sellers when I get into a listing appointment is, what's your favorite charity? What would be meaningful? Like, where can I donate something to, just as a thank you for giving me this opportunity? And I also, aside from just listening to them a lot, I know a lot about architecture, and I make sure if I'm going to go into a big house, I know what a corbel is and, you know, whatever. And I make sure that I verbalize everything I see, because I think that you never know what the seller's most proud of their house. And if you miss that something and someone else saw it, you don't want to be that person. So I kind of just, I verbalize all that. That's the most talking I do, is about how wonderful all the details are in their house. And then I list them off, and then that's it. That's a lot. Stop talking now.
And that is, I love that. Just coming from the heart and from thinking outside the box. Really good. Love a jean day.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
So I want to echo something that Andrea had said earlier, and I think that is that really it takes a lot of years or some years, right, to build up your following and who you're working with to really take your price point up a little bit. And one of the coaches that I had over the years had said, hey, the easiest way to give yourself a raise is to raise your price point. So I think that's something to really be aware of. But then on the other hand, I heard David Gunderman say last week, be careful what you wish for, because it can be a challenging business sometimes, I think, to be listing in the higher price points. It's just, it requires more skill and being adept, all the things that we've already talked about, right? Really connecting on their architecture, really being up on your game in terms of all the numbers, knowing all the numbers, not only of the neighborhood, but of the area. And then, you know, within the US and world as a whole, that, you know, they're going to want to talk about all those things, I think. One way to, I think, for people to potentially get in front of sellers is whenever you have a buyer that's at a little bit higher price range, I would go out and search public records, and I would mail a very personal letter to the neighborhood, like, hey, right, houses that are 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 3,000 square feet in this particular neighborhood, and say, and tell a very personal story about my clients. So they know this isn't just a marketing piece, right? This is like, hey, I have these buyers, Robert and Melissa, and their daughter Sarah, who's looking for a home in your neighborhood, because as we know, there has not been enough inventory, right? So a lot of times we can't find these buyers their homes on the market. And so then that's a great opportunity to, you know, when sellers respond to that letter, of course, then you're saying, sure, I'd love to come over and see your house and see if it works for my buyer. Well, guess what? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But then there you are speaking with sellers, right? So I think that's a really good tool. You know, I've had some success with that, and I think that's something people could incorporate. So I've been using Zoom while we've been in SIP to talk to people. I think it's phenomenal. I would say, and I'm sure you guys have too, but it's much better than doing a conference call, right? And it actually is saving us a lot of time. And then I agree that I am getting together with sellers and social distancing when it's appropriate. If we have a vacant house and we can go in there, now I'm really doing that more. I think anytime you can be face-to-face, it's probably better. So was there something else in the question there?
I think that was good. I will say I want to jump to a few more questions so that we can get through a lot of these. I think another one is really important is what kind of marketing are you doing to market these luxury homes during SIP? You know, you're having conversations with these sellers, keeping them clear on what to expect during these times. But how are you marketing these homes? Are you doing virtual tours? Are you on Facebook groups? What are you doing to really, because as we all know, luxury sellers have an expectation that you're going to set them apart from everyone else. So what are you doing? And I'll start with you, Tracy.
I can go quick. The listing I had that closed last week, I sold neighbor to neighbor. So it was very off market because it was during the time that it was very difficult. Everybody was really sheltered in place and we weren't even essential businesses yet. So the neighbor was the buyer that knew the house and happened to be really well qualified and could meet all the hurdles. So sometimes it's knowing the neighborhood of where you're selling. That doesn't help market nowadays. Frankly, I've got some projects, I've got about 7 going right now that are hoping that by the time we get through all of this, a little more crack will open up a little more will be useful. But when I talk to sellers about what we could do even now, it really is the same thing. What I really talk about is treating the house like the baby in the middle, and whatever story we could develop and talk about then can become a blog post, can become a Facebook post, can go out on Twitter, can have its video around, you know, once you really figure out that good juicy story, then you can talk about different ways to broadcast and access that. With respect to the new MLS clear cooperation rules.
That's a little nod to Gustav. Yeah, and is there any other than neighbors and some of the other things you're doing, is there any type of, are you using any online venue for luxury homes?
We have not, well, our office has been trying to experiment, not with online. I've been a member of all of them and we track ROI. We've had different memberships. And I really haven't seen a lot of there's the occasional foreign investor, but a lot of them are coming through local agents anyway. We're finding more use from community and how big your reach is. And so we could say we've got a good social media profile from that standpoint. But I'm also finding it's a little trial and error. We've tried in our office to do some of the virtual open houses, and you got to have the good Wi-Fi and make sure that's all set up and right. And then sometimes the only people that are attending it are other realtors because that's who's in your sphere. And so one thing that I'm trying to do better at is to make sure that I'm really feeding our social media now. In other words, I'm not going to get into a big Facebook thing, but just with how things get edge ranked and how you end up just seeing the same 20 people, in order to not have the same 20 people be the only people that see your video tour, it sort of becomes that personal reach out again. It's a lot of direct marketing behind the scenes so that Facebook thinks, oh, she's friends with this person, and so maybe this is an important story to those people, and it can sort of work the ranks a little bit by making the more direct conversations with your people.
Love it. Leah, what about you? What kind of marketing are you doing? What kind of venues, vendors are you using to really set apart your luxury listings?
Well, so interestingly, I sold several properties during SIP, but really haven't marketed luxury properties during SIP because they were occupied. So we have not been able to come back on the market yet. They don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm kind of glad that that now we can have professional photographers in. We certainly did do some virtual tours with video and voiceover. We bought a gimbal and did all that. And it came out pretty good. But I don't know, I'm just a big believer in doing, at the luxury level, doing everything very professionally. So I think we're just always upping our game, and so I don't like Matterport, for example. I think that's a tool that really isn't very luxurious and doesn't show off a luxury home very well, and in fact may highlight features that you don't want buyers to see. I don't necessarily want them to see that there are 4 flights of stairs. They're going to see 4 stories, but I don't want them to focus on those stairs. I want them to focus on the amazing views, right? So I think we'll be using more video with voiceover, and maybe being in those videos, maybe not, maybe using live models, but upping the game that way.
Love it. Love it.
And certainly we're, I want to say, in terms of our company, there are, huge network worldwide. So certainly we use that worldwide network. We have a huge luxury division all over the world as well. So I think those are things that can really set our listings apart, to have that worldwide presence. And then certainly social media for sure, right? All the Facebook, all the LinkedIn, all the Instagram, doing all that.
Andrea, what are you doing to market? What vendors are you using? How are you really setting apart these luxury listings? By the way, she has a $3 million listing right behind my house.
Yeah, I do. So that listing in particular is one where the seller moved back in. So I had photographs, fortunately, from when it was vacant prior, but I didn't have a Matterport tour, and I didn't have the videos that were necessary before he moved back in. So I'll have to be doing those things. I agree with everything that Tracy and Leah have been saying, except for Matterport. I actually like Matterport a lot because of the 3-dimensionality of it. I understand that sometimes it can show stairs and other stuff, but that sort of little three-dimensional model that they show of the house when you first enter into a Matterport tour, and the fact that you can look at it in different perspectives, I think is really, really useful for people. And it helps them, you know, let's say they have a grandma who has to have a ground floor bedroom. Well, they'll be able to see that right away, whereas a video or the photos online, virtual tours, don't necessarily give you that perspective. So I think that that's of worth. I always do a floor plan also. Yep. with my listings. The other thing is that when it's a really super ultra high-end listing, I actually hire PR people to do stuff. So like, for example, right now, the house on Rockingham, Kevin Durant used to live there. I had an LA group of marketing people. They happened to be from Compass as it happened, but when I used to work at Red Oak, I would sometimes use my God, what's their name? Lion and Orb, and different people that are coming out with different products right now to help you market your higher end listings, because they're actually able to get press. And organic press is one of the very, very best ways you can possibly get interest in your property. You know, everybody's used to advertisements in the newspaper, everybody's used to luxury home magazines, but when you actually have a story, to wit Tracy's comment, when you actually have a story around a property that's interesting, that kind of organic buzz that you can get is really priceless. The other thing, I took a writing class recently from Don Miller, who was awesome, and he wrote a book called Building a Story Brand. That I think everybody should read, because it really, really helps you. Right now, millennials are totally into stories. They want to, you know, they want to see a Tiffany ad that has the whole proposal and, you know, 2 kids later. They want to see, they want to understand how this object, in this case a home, fits into their life. And so if you're working within that framework in your advertising, you can try to create punchy verbiage that brings that idea of story to bear. So that's what I would, you know, I would recommend that most highly, to read that. It might change your thinking. The other thing, he has this daily thing. He has a business school, and he sends little pithy things every morning if you buy one of his classes. So now apparently I'm going to get Don Miller in my email box every morning for the rest of my life. And this particular morning, he had one which was really great. It talked about building your value proposition to your clients and how you have to reiterate it. So when you are talking to them and getting the listing, you tell them what you bring to the listing. But then during the process of the listing, there's a lot of stuff that sellers, no matter how sophisticated they are, they don't know what you're doing. You know, we try to make it look seamless. We're doing the white glove service that we're all talking about here today. And we're doing such a good job of it that they can't tell what we're doing. So you talk about your value during the course of it. And when you're thanking them at the end of your work with them, you say to them, it was so great. And one of the things I learned in representing your house was how to do a vegetable garden, Tracy. It was so much fun researching all of the different people that were famous that had ever owned this mansion before, and being able to utilize all those archival photographs that I got working at the Berkeley Architectural Heritage Association. If you bring those ideas in to what you are presenting as your value proposition, then they will remember that. They will remember, oh my God, she really did go above and beyond to make this work for me. But you have to reiterate it, because people forget. I forget what I had for lunch. They're going to forget you too, because you're not immediately important to them every day of their lives. So you figure out a way to add value, and then you figure out a way, without sounding boastful, to express the value that you brought, and make sure it's there as part of what you do every time you finish a transaction. Something else that I'm doing lately is writing gratitude lists, by the way. I know that sounds really strange, but when I write gratitude lists for every single one of my listings. And it helps me to understand the things I hate about the listing. It helps me to understand the things I think are meaningful and good about the listing. And it helps me to learn. And I somehow think that just by being positive in approaching my listings, it brings positivity back to me, which sounds really hippie trippy, but it works, believe me. So that's something I'm trying to practice on every deal that I do these days.
Well, then call me a hippie. Because I think gratitude is right now. So I'm just going to go to each one of you and ask you, because we're getting close to the end. Give me a couple of minutes, 3 minutes each. What is one thing you would say to this community of agents? And you understand, Bridge has decided to do these panels every Friday at 1 o'clock, everyone, to give back to our community. And everyone that's showing up on here is giving back to our community of agents. We need to come closer together more than we ever have. And so here you are, you're literally giving back to these people. But what's one thing you would say to them that they should focus on? Where should they be spending their time? I love the gratitude thing. I think that's pretty powerful. So Tracy, I'm going to start with you. What words of wisdom do you have?
I have 2 really quick things that I'll make quick. One is that I think that now is the time, like you said, to give back, not just gratitude, but I think if you're feeling sad, if you could do something for someone, bake a lasagna for somebody that doesn't have family, or, you know, whatever it is, do something to give back to your local neighborhoods, and to past clients as well. The other thing that I would say is that don't get fixated on trying to get luxury property. Some of the clients that I've sold the most volume for started out buying a small condo, and they moved up quickly, and keeping that relationship helped me get to some luxury property just through longevity. The other thing that's true is that I disagree somewhat with the people that will tell you if you want to make more money, just increase your listing price. That works to an extent, but I'm going to tell you they're more work, particularly with as much as we do to do market prep now. I sometimes think I could do $400,000 or $500,000 listings for the time it takes me to do a $2 million listing. So it's not necessarily making it less work. You could just work hard, taking good care of the people that you already got.
Love it. Very good, Tracy. Thank you. Andrea, what would you offer to our community of agents? What should they be focusing on? What's one thing that would be really important, or more than one thing?
Oh my. There are so many things to be mindful of as an agent. First off, how very fortunate we are at this time period to be essential. There are a lot of people who are not essential right now. And so I am profoundly grateful for being able to do my job during this time period and being able to still make money, put food on the table for my family. So I'm super grateful about that. And the freedom that it affords me, you know, so that I can be on 5 Zoom meetings before this conference call or this Zoom meeting today, and then this afternoon be able to go take a walk or something. That's a very beautiful and powerful thing. What I would say to agents on this call is you're all amazing. We do really heroic work every day, and people don't understand our value. So it's really important to talk about your value where you go. It's also not in a boastful way, but just in a true way. And it's also really important to understand, like Tracy said, that you don't end up selling luxury properties immediately. Now, honestly, if you were a very, very, very wealthy person and an agent who had been in the business for 5 weeks came to a listing appointment, and then another agent who'd been in the business for 30 years came to a listing appointment, you're probably not going to hire the person who's been in the business for 5 weeks. And the reason why is because you grow with your business. When you're a baby agent, you're going to get baby buyers and baby sellers. And a natural trajectory of your business is going to be that, you know, within 2 or 3 years, for a variety of reasons, you'll get your first listing. If you get a listing before that, then you're really lucky. And if you know how to handle it, you're really lucky too. And you should ask for advice from people that know what they're doing. Once you do that, you will grow with your clientele. And you will also have been culturally through the same events as your clientele have been through in their trajectory as homeowners and property owners. So you will speak a same language. Speaking the same language is really, really important. And if you don't speak the same language, you're not going to be able to communicate effectively or well with your people. So don't expect yourself to be something other than who you are. So, you know, I always had this happen when I was first in the business. I would always want to hold open houses at $2 and $3 million houses in San Francisco. And again, my broker, Mohammed, would be like, what are you doing that for? Go to Daly City, go sell a $300,000 house. That way you have money. And I always took that as great advice from him, because I did go sell that $300,000 house. And then I sold a $500,000 house. Then I sold an $800,000 house. Then I sold $1 million house. And, you know, now my average price point is somewhere around $1.5 million. But it took a long time to get there. So don't expect everything from yourself immediately, and don't expect yourself to do things that you don't understand. Do the things you understand. It's the same advice you get when you're a writer. They tell you to write about what you know about. When you're an actor, they tell you to act about what you know about. You know, if you can have the feeling of love or compassion, you can bring it out fully to that character. If you are doing anything, you have to only stay at the level that you know and learn. Learning is huge. So just go for it.
Thank you, Andrea.
Can I interject? I know that it's not my turn, but I just wanted to add to the baby agents concept is that one of the best things you could do is align yourself with someone that's a mentor. And I'm not just talking about somebody that'll coach you and take you to classes, but if you can literally be by an Andrea Gordon's side while she's giving a listing presentation and hear the wisdom and the words that every great agent thinks they don't use scripts, but they all use scripts. And the scripts aren't scripts anymore, they're experience. So if you could hear that, if you could be witness to that in a deeper way, or asked to be part of to sit in on offer presentations with someone that's an experienced agent in your office, or any way that you can find mentorship gets you over that baby gap a lot sooner, because then even if you don't have years and years of experience, the words that are coming out of your mouth start to have that tone of experience.
Very good.
Sorry to interject.
Thank you. No, it was perfect. Leah, I'm going to let you bring us home. What would you say to these agents?
Well, I think during this really difficult time, I mean, the best thing is that you're already here and probably on other Zoom calls, so it means you're getting up and showing up. And that's the first thing, is to get up and show up. I think in terms of luxury, I would say, well, really anything. Check your mindset. I certainly do a morning routine every day where I'm doing silence and gratefulness and writing down what would make my day amazing and all of those things. I would say check your mindset. When I first got into the business, Rick Ricketta and I, he's a very good buddy, you know, we jumped right in to listing really nice homes and fixing them up and getting them ready. And I don't think it ever occurred to us that we couldn't. So I don't know. I mean, certainly there is some experience that people need, but on the other hand, I think that don't let yourself get in the way. Just believe in yourself, believe in what you're passionate about, and that you can do it. You know, I think that's super important. I think embrace the shift in the market. I think this is a super opportunity to be challenged, yet to really learn where our gaps are. And unless we're really feeling pushed, we're probably being too complacent. I think we need to be learning based and really be looking to implement and adapt. So not just coming to all of these Zoom calls, but taking notes and really making changes both to ourselves. I heard David Gunderman say, hey, really tap into your potential last week. And so that's something not potential, into your passion, excuse me, your passion. Tap into your passion, like who really you are, and take this time to really think about that and really put that into your business. And then Lynette said to be really kind to yourself, because it might be a really difficult time right now we're not always our best selves. And this is what I think about meeting with clients right now. I've really seen this, is that they are not their best selves, right? It's hard. It's hard. A lot of them, I literally just put something on the market today where, you know, they've lost their business. That's it. Boom. They're done for a year. And so, you know, it made me really sad, because that was a dream home for them 3 years ago. And so when I went in to do the photos, I just was so sad, right? But I think, you know, that this is where, I think this is where we can really come from contribution, right? And really be helping people during this. It's a really difficult time for some people. Last thing is to really build relationships. So in terms of luxury, I remember doing a deal early on with Ani and Tunny, who is my total hero. And I think we just need to like watch different agents, right, that we admire and how they do business. And I think she was actually on the buyer side. I was on the listing side of a little fixer that I had, and she was so humble, straightforward, communicating. And I think that's the biggest thing I see in all the highest, the best agents doing the biggest business is usually they're very humble and they're willing to talk to you, and they're always on the phone communicating. Those are the things I noticed. They're out there just willing to give. So I agree with what Tracy said, reach out, get mentors,
So we're about to wrap this up, but there was one last question. Do you guys get coaching? Tell me about that real quick, and then
I don't do regular coaching. I every year develop a business plan, and I have a business mentor, another business professional that I look up to that helps look over my business plan with me and target goals. But other than that, I have lots of other things on my plate, and I can't do regular coaching. I've tried, and it just felt like an extra thing.
Yeah. Andrea, I know you do coach.
I love coaching. I think coaching is great. I started out I've had different coaches for every different phase of my career. And it's sort of like different boyfriends or lovers that you would have over the course of your life. They meet different needs at different times, and it's important for you to understand what you need. Like I remember when I first wanted to go to Tom Ferry, and Tom Ferry gives you like a 15-minute on the phone with himself. And so I get on the phone with him, and I'm just like anybody, I've got an ego. And so I was like, well, I want you. And he was like, you're not ready for me. I was like, what the heck are you talking about? I'm ready for you. I'm like this big top producer. I should be with Tom Ferry. And he set me up with a coach that was a great accountability coach that taught me how to know my numbers, taught me how to understand tracking my business, taught me all kinds of nuts and bolts stuff that I had no idea about before. And I was absolutely not ready to work directly with Tom Ferry. And many years later, I talked to him at one of those rah-rah sis boom bah conventions that we all used to go to. And, told him that that advice that he had given me that day was so spot on. And he laughed and said, everyone always wants to coach directly with me, but everybody has different needs at different times. And he was completely right. I've coached, I've had sessions with Tina. I've had sessions with different people. I have a coach right now that's a business coach. And I think that you use a business coach differently at different stages of your career. So right now I'm learning how to run a bigger business. I do the business of a small brokerage myself, so I have to understand how to do that. I have to understand what financially is the best to do. When I was an agent starting out my first year, I wouldn't have needed any of that stuff. I needed the accountability stuff. So I think it's really important. Yeah. There, I blathered on and on about that, sorry.
And then you, Leah, and then we'll wrap the whole thing up. Thank you everyone for staying with us.
So I think coming to Keller, so I really had never done coaching. Yeah, that's not true. I did do coaching with Lorna Hines. I loved it, learned a lot. And coming to Keller Williams, I've probably done a lot more coaching. I think I've always resisted it. I don't like being told what to do. I don't know if any of you can relate to that.
Yeah.
But I think I've always worried that they're going to push me to do things that I don't want to do. And it's true. They do, kind of. So now I'm doing, so I've coached with Tina, which I've loved. And then I'm now coaching with Ben Kinney's coaching organization. I think it's phenomenal. They do individual coaching, and then there are just a ton of group coaching classes. And I use Brivity, so that's where we're kind of exponentially starting to use that platform right now. And so it all ties together. I think you just have to find your best match.
Well, guys, this has been great. Thank you, Gustavo. We went a little over, but everyone, thank you for being a part of it. And I'll look forward to seeing you all next week at 1 o'clock with yet another great panel. I'll announce them, or Gustavo will announce them soon. And thank you, Tracy, Andrea, Leah. You guys were marvelous and so generous with your time and information. Thank you very much. Mwah.